morning, everybody. Welcome to our Breakfast with the Boss, sponsored by Fidelity Bank. May the 4th be with you. Am I the only person in the room that wants to say, and also with you? Lift up your hearts, lift them up. All right. That's literally all I know. I'm the worst Catholic. My mother will agree. I hope that you enjoy our Star Wars theme this morning. Please definitely take a selfie with Yoda. He would appreciate it. He feels lonely over in the corner. A quick housekeeping request, please take a moment to turn off your cell phones or make sure that they are on mute. We don't want you to have to make them answer that phone call in front of everybody while we're being recorded. So we are so appreciative of the support and partnerships we have with the businesses in the Nashoba Valley. As you may tell, it is our passion to help businesses, and the support of our corporate sponsorships really allows us that opportunity to continuously look for new ideas and ways to do that. Please join me as we recognize a couple of our corporate sponsors that are here with us today. Please stand when I call your name. Dennis, Maria, Wayne, and Heidi. Is it Heidi? I did my notes before our European attorney. Laura and Chris from Rollstone Bank and Trust. I would be remiss if I didn't take a second to recognize the members of our board of directors that are here today who have also been amazingly supportive. We have Mike from Catania Oils. Colleen's not here. Okay. We have a few folks that weren't able to join us this morning. Of course, one business that we haven't yet recognized, and they have been ongoingly supporting us for the last 20 years, our Breakfast with the Boss sponsor, Fidelity Bank. I would like to welcome up Stuart and Goodman to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Just know also at our table we're collecting any of the masks for grandkids. So if you're not using yours, please bring them to our table. Thank you so much, Melissa. Fidelity Bank is so excited to be the presenting sponsor for our breakfast this morning. For those of you who don't know who Fidelity Bank is, we are a full-service community bank. We have over 13 banking centers across our region. It's close to Shirley, and I know our Shirley manager is here today. Joyce from Shirley to Leominster to Fitchburg to Gardner to Barry to Worcester to Needham. We're everywhere. Anytime you have a need, please come see us. Any need that you have, large or small, we have everything that it takes to make your life successful. But one of the things that we really focus on are 3 words: care, clarity, and confidence. And over this past several years, as we're coming out of the pandemic and we're really coming through, nothing has been more clearer than making sure that we're giving our clients the clarity that they need to move forward with confidence. So as you look at the different financial institutions that are in our market, just know that that is something that really differentiates the bank. We really make sure that we're taking care of our clients and giving them the confidence that they need to move forward. Many of our clients tell us all the time about how different that is to make sure that they have a bank that is a true partner for them. We care about families, we care about businesses, and we care about you. One of the things I read, which was interesting in terms of clarity, is the University of North Carolina had a study that said we make 35,000 different unconscious and conscious decisions on a daily basis. No wonder I'm exhausted by the end of the day. So knowing that you have clarity in your financial decisions actually makes us feel good, and hopefully it should make you feel good too. So that's all the time I'm going to take up today. I cannot wait to hear about all of these fantastic businesses this morning. Thank you to Melissa for having us be the presenting sponsor. And if you ever have any financial needs at all, please come see any of our talented colleagues at Fidelity Bank. Thank you.
And Fidelity Bank for your ongoing care and support of our community. If you've been to one of our in-person breakfasts this year, and I had a conversation with Dennis, we're going to get more people together. We're excited to be out in the community again. We've definitely missed seeing folks. You know that we've added our member recognition presentation to the agenda. One thing that a great boss does is offer recognition, and so it seemed only natural for us to recognize businesses that are contributing to the success of our region. So today we're going to recognize 3 businesses that you will quickly recognize as leaders in our community. Nashoba Valley Express has been offering unparalleled service to its customers for 40 years when founder Robert H. Hebb Jr. purchased his first truck in 1982 to embark on his dream of owning his own business. Robert's wife Kathleen joined him in 1988 and continues on with that same service since his passing in 2020. Not only do they haul general commodities, including metal, plastic, paper, machinery, and a variety of other materials all over New England, from Portland, Maine to New Haven, Connecticut, including a daily run to Logan Airport, they also operate 66,000 square feet full-service, temperature-controlled, and electronically secure public storage warehouse. During the height of COVID, Nashoba Valley Express kept things running in order to keep their manufacturers supplied with the critical materials needed to support our food, pharmaceutical, medical, sanitation, and defense industries. Very needed. In 1993, they purchased their current location on Central Ave in Air and added to the existing building in 1994, where they are today. The business has grown over the years to 7 trucks a day, employing 13 people. We pride ourselves on service and communication, and we couldn't do it without our amazing employees who support each other and truly work as a team, says Kathleen of her very loyal and dedicated staff who are committed to growing the business. Robert grew up in Air and was always more than willing to support local endeavors, whether it be local fire and police departments, food pantries in the kitchen, or school fundraisers. The tradition continues. Please join us in congratulating Kathleen and her crew for 40 years of outstanding service. With offices in 7 towns spanning Central Mass and Metro West, Murphy's has been covering the insurance needs for quite a few folks in the state since 1937, when D. Francis Frank Murphy opened an office in Hudson, offering personal, business, and financial coverage. His son Dennis F. Murphy Jr. joined the agency in 1960 and grew it from a single-person operation into a 75-person regional operation with 6 locations, now servicing 3rd and 4th generations of satisfied customers. The Groton office was opened in 1998. Dennis III, who joined the firm in 1993, proudly offers some amazing facts about the agency. First in the state of offer registry service in-house. First agency in the country to be awarded best practices status. First agency in the state to earn a 5-star designation. Dennis Jr. installed the first computer system in 1974. Behind the scenes, Murphy's hands out 20-plus college scholarships to local graduating high school students. The mission of Murphy's Insurance is to exceed customers' expectations and build long-term relationships through an approach of insurance made simple. That helps protect their whole life, both personal and business, basically by doing things right the first time. With 85 years behind them, they must be doing something right. Please welcome Dennis Murphy III and congratulate him and the whole Murphy team on this amazing feat. If you want to, you could say something if you'd like. You don't have to.
Well, I would be remorse if you said the last one was due to the employees. I'd be remorse if I didn't say that. As well as the support from our great customers and communities, as well as the chamber. So thank you. Without you, it doesn't work.
Oh, thank you. Originally from Quebec, Canada, George L. Moison immigrated to Groton, where he would raise his family. In 1922, George opened what we know today as Moison Ace Hardware, located on the corner of Hollis Street and Willowdale Road. Over the course of 5 generations, the store has remained family-owned and operated while becoming a pillar in our community. They have every nut and bolt you could ever need, and have always been there to meet our community members' needs. During 1986, George L. Moison's great-grandson, Rick Sargent, took over the family business, and in 1988 joined Ace Hardware Corporation, which is the largest retailer-owned hardware cooperative in the industry, known as the Helpful Place. The company bought the present property in 1992, which was formerly Bruce Pharmacy, demolished the building, and built a new one with plenty of off-street parking, expanding all departments to better serve community needs. The store received Ace Hardware's premier nationwide Ace Retailer Award in 1994. In 2008, they added a second location to Bedford to expand their services. Both stores are currently owned and managed by George's great-grandson, Neil Sargent. Moison Ace Hardware has a strong reputation for giving back to the community, including support of the Nashua River Watershed Association, Groton Greenaway, Groton Community School, and even the Nashoba Valley Chamber. In 2019, the Hardware Connection, a magazine for independent hardware retailers, established the Century Club, celebrating hardware retailers that have reached the century mark. Moison Ace Hardware is one of 22 hardware retailers that have this achievement in Massachusetts. Join me in recognizing Neil Sargent on behalf of Moison Ace Hardware for 100 years of helpfulness from this local family business and an exciting achievement as we celebrate their centennial anniversary. Thank you for helping us recognize these great businesses. As you hear of other business successes, please let me know. We love to promote the great things that our members are doing. Now, the other reason that we're here this morning is our Breakfast with the Boss. Today, we are going to have Jason Cowpey is going to interview 3 leaders from Catania Oils. Is it Joseph, Joe, Steve, Stephen?
Yes, you figure it out.
The shorter the better. Gentlemen, come on up. And Mike.
Oh, and Mike.
Oh, yes. Yeah, sorry.
Might be stars. You're the president, you can say wherever you want. You want to be in a better angle? Sure. Morning, everyone. Who here likes Cape Cod potato chips? Ocean Spray cranberry products? Ken salad dressings? Stacy's pita chips and Cedar's hummus? Oh, yeah. All right, well, this morning we're going to figure out what all those have in common. We are fortunate to have 3 leaders from the family-owned air business that is a literal giant in what they do. These are our local oil men, but it's olive, corn, and other plant oils. We have Mr. Joe Basile, President, Steve Basile, Executive Vice President, and Mike Kotu, the Chief Financial Officer. So let's start by just a quick introduction. Let's start with Joe. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. Joe Basile, live in Burlington, Mass. The family relocated the business here about 25 years ago, so certainly been a big part of things. Stephen and I grew up in the business, so we worked in the warehouse production, went off to college and kind of came out of school and went into the business full time and worked our way through the ranks, so it's a little bit about me.
Yep. Stephen Basile, live in Groton, got 3 kids, and I guess the one thing that I'll just add to what Joe said is, growing up in the family business was a lot of fun. I mean, we started when we were 12, 13 years old, and our grandfather used to pick us up at the house on every Saturday, bring us into the plant, walk around and say, change this leaker, do this, do that. So most of you are old enough in this room, so I think you'll get this joke. We never really understood what we were doing, so I always like to say that he Miyagi'd us into the business.
Mike Kutsu, I handle the money and the financial stuff for the company. Brookline, New Hampshire, I have 2 children. One's in college, one's a senior in high school, so my money goes out the door pretty quickly. But I've been with Catania for almost 12 years, and we'll touch upon that as we go, but it's exciting.
Awesome. Great. So, Joe, we'll start with you. Catania calls itself the nation's largest independent processor and packer of plant-based oils. There's a lot there. Let's unpack that. How big is the industry? Where does Catania fit in it? Why do you make that distinction of being independent?
Sure. I mean, our industry is very large, but it's also pretty small. It is a global industry, but the food business overall tends to be pretty small. We know Other players kind of know each other. It's important for us to make the designation that we're independent because there's not a lot of red tape. We are, facing, multi-billion-dollar, public companies like ADM, Cargill, Bunge, Medina, some other names. Those are just agricultural, monsters in the food industry. There's a lot of red tape with those organizations. So when we deal with us, a lot of our customer base, oftentimes they may be dealing with us on a personal level, or they may be dealing with somebody from our sales team that has very easy access to us. So when decisions need to be made, they can be, quickly. So that's, pretty important to understand. On a global scale, our markets, our commodity markets, trade, everything that you see going on right now in the news relative to petroleum, what's going on with the conflict over in Ukraine have implications on our commodity prices as well as supply chain. So it is a pretty, significant, sizable industry, and the competitive nature of the industry has changed a lot. The landscape, there's been a lot of consolidation, specifically over the 20 to 30 years that Stephen and I have been involved in the business. Years ago, there used to be a lot of mom and pop, shops of our nature, smaller in size, and today we're one of the very few that would be considered, family owned. There's probably one other company like us in the country that's of a significant, call it, size. To put that a little bit into scope, we do about 450 million pounds of product through our facility on an annual basis. That's about 1 million gallons a week relative to product. There are companies out there that on the larger side that will do 4 to 5 times that in terms of volume. And then there are a lot of other companies that are much, smaller. So that kind of just, I think, paints a little bit of a picture relative to size and scope, if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, great. And then, Steve, take us through sort of cooking oils 101. Like what happens over there? The product comes in, but I mean, you're a manufacturer, but you're not actually you're not refining the oil. So what is the value add that you guys put?
Yeah, so there's, it's a great point. We bring in oil from over 30 different countries, but when you look at just domestic, and I'm including Canada in that domestic mix because they're our neighbor, we're bringing in, close to 20 different oils via rail car. When I say rail car, it's a big, rail car, about 26,000 gallons of oil into our facility. In our facility, we have spots for 25 different rail cars. So we're talking about soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, peanut oil, organic variations of those, non-GMO variations, different variations of olive oil, different specialty oils. Sound like Bubba Gump right now. But the oil doesn't just appear in a bottle, and I think you mentioned quite a few different manufacturers that we service, but we also service quite a few different restaurants. We don't deliver direct to the restaurants. It goes through broadline distribution, the likes of like Cisco, US Foods, PFG, as well as we do a big amount of retail private brands. So you walk into Market Basket or Stop and Shop, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, customers like that, we're putting their label on the bottle. And when you look at the process, the oil comes into the facility via rail. Before any of the oil comes into the plant, we have a whole QA team responsible to pull samples, to test everything for quality, purity, to make sure that's within spec before we bring it into the building. And then at that point, we disperse it to different pack rooms where we're packing into all the different sizes. And it doesn't just end there, right? We have customers that we work with that they're looking for a certain stability. So you mentioned like Cape Cod chip. They typically like to use a high stability oil because using a high stability oil that allows them, to their best by date, they can expand out a little bit. And if that's not good enough, we work with our lab, we work with their R&D department. We're able to add different preservatives, rosemary extract to kind of get them a little bit more oxidative stability. We also do varying different blends of canola oil and extra virgin olive oil for the food service operator who wants that nice olive oil flavor but may not want to spend the amount of money for 100% extra virgin olive oil. Speaking of olive oil, look at our olive oil supply chain. We import olive oil from all over the Mediterranean basin, Spain, Turkey, Morocco, Tunisia, even down to Chile. And we bring that oil in through vessel where we have tanks in Hudson Tank, Port Newark, New Jersey, where we backhaul our olive oil to then bottle off and for all the different customers that we have.
And who out here knows the world's #1 supplier of olive oil? Anyone? Yeah, I don't either. Do you guys know?
I'm,
I think I know. I think I heard
I'm
you
thinking
wrong.
you guys might be thinking it's Italy, and you would all be wrong. It's actually Spain. Spain is about 50% of the world production of olive oil. Italy is a net importer. They primarily import oil from Spain and then also from Tunisia, as well as some from Greece.
And Steve, you said something in your intro that I picked up on, but I don't know if everyone did. You talked about fixing a leaker.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, so, well, years ago, we had a lot more, we had a lot more leakers years ago. But, you know, look, when you pack oil or sure other items that you pack, it's not always perfect, right? So you're walking around the warehouse, and with oil, you can really see it because the case is all soiled, right? So we pull those cases off the pallets, we go through it, identify the leaker, dump it out. Can we salvage anything? If we can, we rebox it, put the new codes on it. So that's really what I was referring to.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that. And Mike, Steve mentioned a lab over there on Nepco Way. Just take us through kind of a verbal tour of that facility. We've all driven by it a million times, probably have no idea what goes on there.
Yeah, when I first interviewed with the company almost 12 years ago, I was shocked what can be produced out of that one facility. That facility at One Nemco is the primary production site. It's about 100,000 square feet. Incrementally, we've added to that site, and we've also purchased the site across the street at 3 Nemco. But at 1 Nemco, as Stephen was mentioning, the flow of oil comes through. Raw materials come in on rail car. They go into processing tanks. They are processing tanks by the state of Massachusetts. No, I'm kidding. So those processing tanks, have the oil in it. The lab in and of itself will take care of screening any type of oil. We put in quite a bit of equipment. We just recently expanded the lab space to give those folks a little bit more room to operate. And the standards that we're putting forth on olive oil clarity, Stephen will be much more in tune to speak to the specifics of it, but we've got 2 chemists on site that do quite a bit of testing for the purity of olive oil. The adulterated olive oil industry, if you want to call it that, has been in the news quite a bit when you see someone who might be producing what they call extra virgin olive oil, but it's really not. So there's a standard that is set forth, and we do a lot of testing to make sure the raw materials that come in meet that standard, not only as they come in, but also as we look to bottle them. Because we have quite a few retail customers that tend to be pretty picky, and they'll do their own independent testing to make sure what we say it is actually is. And so far, we've done very well with keeping that.
Well, that's an
standard.
interesting thread that I didn't anticipate, but I want to explore that some more with the brothers. I mean, is this like people trying to pull one over on you by sending you oil that's not really up to snuff?
They would never send us because they knew we would catch them.
Exactly. Super interesting. And then what's the addition you're putting on?
Sure. At One Nemco, we have probably like 4 more inches of space on that property to do anything else. But at this point, we're putting up a 51,500 square foot addition. At this point, we're still in the research and development phase of what we're going to put inside. But essentially, it's going to give us, if you picture in your mind a 100,000 square foot facility that is there now, about 30% of that, about 30,000 square feet, is actually our current production space. So the 51,000 square foot addition is what we're looking to have as additional production space. So that's a significant uptick from what we have today. So we've got some good drawings. Our CAD designers put a lot of different equipment in there. It could be SKU diversification. It could be vertical integration of equipment and supply chain. There's just a lot of fun ideas that we're tossing around still. Essentially, when we open it up, it's going to be a really big basketball court with, I think, some storage space.
And Joe, this is a 5th generation business?
Fourth.
Fourth, okay.
You got to be.
I'm glad. Take us back, 125 years to the founding of this company?
How long do we have?
How long do we have? We've done a whole history of this, so we have to be careful.
Obviously it's a long story, and we're part of the 4th generation, and really started with our great-grandfather who immigrated here from Sicily around 1900, and he came here with a few barrels of olive oil and essentially started going house to house trying to sell his product. All our neighboring areas of Boston, Lynn, His son, our grandfather, followed in his footsteps at a very early age. He used to go to school in East Boston and take a stack of cans, and school got out, take the ferry, and go do the same thing. So he's one that really settled the business and broke into the different industries that we're in today: the retail, the food service, and then the bulk sales. He had 5 kids. He got his kids involved with the business at a very early age, and similar to Stephen and myself's involvement, it was from the ground up. Back then, there wasn't automation, there wasn't much of anything. It was all manual labor. There was no forklifts. It was all 2-wheelers, a lot of conveyors. Back in the 60s and 70s, we actually were similar to a broadline distributor, like a Cisco. We were doing all sorts of food products, whether that would be tomato sauce, salt, pepper, all sorts of stuff. If my father was there, he'd go off on a rant relative to how that was and how hard the work was and all that other good stuff. In the late 70s, my father's generation took over the business, and they made the tough decision to move away from all of the Gatsy stuff and really focus on the oils, which is what they felt was really what the business was built on. So they were in Samoa, Mass for about 40 years. That's where Stephen and I started in the business at that plant. And we relocated up here in the mid-90s, and the 4th generation is running things today, and it's changed a lot. There's been a lot of change relative to technology, to bringing in more outside experienced individuals like Mike versus that closely held family business where you wear multiple hats. So it's been a lot of change for us.
Right. And how did you end up in it? Like what?
That's where the rail cars were.
Yeah.
So being in Mobile Mass for all those years, so we mentioned we're on rail. So rail is the lifeline relative to the supply chain of the facility. Our product is typically coming from the Midwest, Canada, or the Southeast. That's typically the origin points in the United States. So when we were at Somerville, a lot of times the rail cars were always ending up in air before they were coming to Somerville. Westboro is another place that we actually were looking at, and we actually had a preference for Westboro. My father had a preference for Westboro. He had some flat land that was identified, about 20 acres, and had a bid on property there, and that fell through. And here was the second choice, and it was being a fantastic choice for us because we've had a lot of growth over the years. So that's kind of how we ended up in here. But we chose a site that was undeveloped, so it allowed us to literally custom design and build what our needs were. So it was a lot different than buying a warehouse that's already in existence and transforming it to what we have today. We have a lot of tanks that are inside the building. We have a large garage where our tank trucks can be unloaded inside of the building. So it's not just your typical, when you drive past the building, you see the brown siding, and it looks like a warehouse, but it's much different inside relative to the design of the actual facility.
Let's explore this idea of a family business. A few years ago, the Chamber had an event where it hosted family-owned businesses and talked about the pros and cons and challenges. Maybe Stephen, starting with you, what are some of the challenges of it being a family-owned business versus investor-owned?
Yeah, I mean, challenges are you're working with family, right? So let's just call it for what it is. There's pros to it and there's cons to it, right? The pros to it is I'm working with family. The con is I'm working with family. It just makes, I think that, with Joe's leadership, we've done a tremendous job over recent years to transforming, the family business to a business that the family works in. So with a lot of things that we've been rolling out with, competency models and everything that we've been doing is all kind of transforming the business to act more like a business. And yeah, it's important that we stay family owned. I always joke around that, we don't want to be the generation that screws it up. So, everything that we're doing is all for the benefit of the family. And, there is a 5th generation. He's probably a few years away from working. Quite a few years, but maybe 4 or 5 years away. But the intention is that we're going to continue to grow the business to be a family.
Right. And Mike, you're not a family member. What's your take on? You worked for a big bank before, which is probably a different environment.
I did, yeah. So I don't know there's bankers in the room, so I won't come up with too many jokes on that. No, I got my start at the credit trading program out of Bay Bank. And I think I sat in the same cube and had 4 different business cards over 36 months with the various purchase and stuff. But You know, you brought up the passing of the generations and stuff like that, and I have my dad's and my mom's wedding locket that my dad wore forever, and that was sort of our family heirloom in our family. This business is the Basile family heirloom, and it's something that they take very seriously, and every decision that is made with that in mind. So when I had the opportunity to come on board and, you know, sort of transition out of where I was in my career, it was to a point where I felt as though, in an opportunity where I felt as though I could make a significant impact. And that was very important for me at that time. And although I don't have the last name, and this is not a cliche whatsoever, although I don't have the last name, the employees at Catania are treated like family. You know, we've set up our 5 core values around that whole concept, and I think that's very important for the folks that work with us to understand that that's the mode at which we're trying to go towards. And it's been very impactful for me personally, and I know that we've got, at 12 years, I'm like one of the junior folks in terms of tenure at the company. I mean, we've got folks that are older than I am. I mean, that have worked for the company longer than I've been alive. That's probably what I want to try to say.
Steve, your bio says every generation takes the company to the next level. What would you say has been the accomplishment of your generation?
Yeah, I think Joe kind of hit on it a little bit earlier with, you know, innovation and technology. Years ago, there was like no innovation in technology, lots of people on a line, you know, screwing caps on. And when you look at the leaps and bounds that we've taken the company over the past 10 to 20 years, we've added quite a bit of innovation, technology, and then in addition to that, I think he also said about people, right? So people and process is another huge area where we've been focusing a lot of our time and energy, making sure that the right people are in the right seats no matter what the last name is. So those are like really the key focuses of our generation to continue to take this company to the next level.
You know, it's interesting. I'm the numbers guy, so just a couple of fun little numbers in terms of technology. When I started, we had 3 servers shoved in a supply closet and 50 PCs. So now we have probably 18 servers across 3 different sites. Every piece of equipment is interconnected. We can see when a particular part of a line goes down, and it alerts the operators to the next part of the line to make sure that they're not jamming bottles into things that they shouldn't be, you know, doing. So it's light years ahead of where it was even when I started 12 years ago.
When you started 12 years ago, we still had a typewriter.
That's true. It wasn't one of the automated ones either.
And Joe, we've got, I mean, businesses of all size here, right? And we all face challenges. What are some of the challenges that a company of your size is facing, and what are the hurdles that you have to overcome to succeed into the next generation?
I mean, right now, I mean, some of the biggest, you know, challenges that we're just seeing are what's going on with the world. I mean, obviously, you know, the pandemic over the last, 2.5 years have been extremely challenging for any business. I mean, we were somewhat fortunate that we're in the food business and diversified, between retail, food service, and then food manufacturing. So although food service got, killed, retail and bulk, was up by, 30-40%, making up for the food service. So, very fortunate to be in a business that we weren't negatively impacted from a volume perspective, but certainly a lot of challenges, working through that pandemic with labor and trying to keep people focused and supportive and going through the whole remote work. I mean, we're a manufacturer. We need to be there physically on the floor. Yes, we have an office. We have people on accounting, customer service, sales. So dealing with that diverse workplace is a little bit of a challenge. More than anything, as of the last, I'd call it 6 months, it's really the supply chain and what we're seeing from an inflation perspective. A lot of our customers, about 70% of our sales on a daily basis are contractual sales, where our customers are locking in a particular price for a fixed period of time. So based on market conditions, their earnings strategy, their price strategy on their side, they'll work with us and they'll secure 3-month price lock, 6-month price lock, whatever it may be. So 75% of our business is set. So if we set prices today based on known conditions that we have with labor, freight, all of those things, there's inherent risk. And we are operating in a commodity market. The commodity market is If you see the movie of Trading Spaces, or Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, that's how things used to be in our commodity market, actually on the floor. Today, it's all electronic, it's all traded by computers. So our markets, they trade 20 plus hours a day. So having that risk, that volatility with markets is very critical to make sure that we're hedging our position and making sure that we're not overextending. We're not sitting here with a certain market opinion saying, okay, hey, Stephen, things look good, let's go take your position out 6 months. So it's really just about all that risk exposure, and our customers, lead time, that's typically 10 to say 15 business days. And a lot of our suppliers are coming at us now, whether it's boxes, caps, bottles, and saying, we need 20 days, we need 12 weeks, we need 16 weeks. Our prices are up by X%, they're being passed on to us. So it's all of those outside, influences that are going on. You need to be able to be agile and be able to move, quickly, and have that, communication flow internally. So we know when we need to adjust price, when we need to look at our manufacturing, schedules, capacity plan, and all that stuff, goes into play. So I just kind of feel like the last, 2 years we've been in this battle, and every day is a different, challenge. And I think what's been good for us is, the way we've come together and we've supported each other throughout the entire company, through the different departments, the sales and customer service team. A lot of their business development efforts kind of fell by the wayside because they're just putting out fires all day relative to the current customer base and what we can do, can't do relative to getting orders out for customers. So that's just been, I think, the biggest challenge, and trying to keep people upbeat and motivated and focused on, hey, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is better days to come. So you constantly feel like you're saying that. So I think that's some of the challenges.
And what about finding workers or employees? I know a lot of businesses have had that issue. Do you guys face that as well?
Yeah.
Do you have any secrets to that success?
No, I mean, obviously, wages are up considerably the last, 2 years. Depending on which particular aspect of the business, whether it's production floor workers, warehouse, truck drivers, mechanics, it kind of feels like, depending on what quarter we're talking about, it was warehouse workers, then it kind of flowed into production, and then it was drivers for a little bit. Now we're kind of in an area where mechanics are kind of, getting pressure. They were having, some challenges, filling positions. Our vice president of HR, it's, just really about doing things different, trying to connect more at the high school level. So we're reaching out to local high schools and trying to connect with them and, make that tie with manufacturing. Manufacturing could be a career path if that's what you're interested in, as well as the technical schools. Utilizing all the web-based, Indeeds and stuff of that nature to try to recruit workers in. What's hard is, people will show interest and then they ghost you. They don't show for the interview, or they don't show for whatever it is, or someone comes in and they just say the work's too hard and they don't show back up. So it's a challenge. It certainly is, and we certainly could use more labor relative to the floor.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have a plan for 2022 to have 200 employees in the company. We have roughly 165 today. So we've got 25, 30 openings that are partially being filled with temporary staff and overtime. So it's certainly a challenge.
But plus, you guys have a Thanksgiving turkey fry, right? So who does that, right? Like, you'd want to work there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely one of our selling points, or I like to say it's one of our selling points to come work for us. Again, I think Mike hit on one of our core values, we are family, and that's really kind of what that's all about. Family sales, we're frying up about 13 turkeys the Tuesday before Thanksgiving to get them ready for Thanksgiving. But right in the parking lot, chicken wings, mashed potatoes, all the fixings, pie, and the employees really look for that every year. It's like the talk, right? So I know that a lot of our employees look for that, and it's not just that, right? We do a lot of things that are very family oriented, whether it's the summer barbecue, the roasts, we just do so many different things that, we don't want to just be like, okay, we're going to give everybody the highest wage and come work for us. We want people to enjoy work. We want them to come work for Catania, and we want them to be there for the long haul. So whatever we can do to train them up, develop them, give them a reason to stay, like those are the things that we really are focused on. Sometimes it's just harder, like Joe mentioned, like some of like the forklift operators, for instance, like it is a different breed, and we're trying to put together different strategies for the different types of people who we can keep.
I think an interesting story, just to tie to that. We have an employee, he's actually a local resident, Steve Rogers, if anybody happens to know him. He's been with us for 5 years, and I just found out he's retiring in a few weeks. And Anne Marie, our Vice President of HR, told me about this, and he made a post through our payroll system, which was Paylocity. And one of the things he actually mentioned that he was going to miss was talking to our dad. So he'd walk around through the plant every single day and just connect with people. That's just, I think, interesting piece of what you were saying.
So I've got more questions. We could go all morning, but I want to open it to the audience to see if you guys have questions. Please, gentlemen. Yes, sir.
Stephen, you said about leakers, right? We had probably from a 4-ounce leaker to a 26-gallon leaker. What's the biggest leaker you had?
I stabbed a drum a couple times.
Plastic one.
No, it was a metal drum.
And that's just like seeing money go out on the floor, right? Like it's gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus the supplies to clean it up with.
Other
Yeah.
questions? Yeah.
You've shared a couple of your values. Could you share all your values?
We are family, customer focused, own it.
Authenticity at our core.
That's one of them.
Job well done.
Well done, there you go.
It's a card that I keep behind my ID to get into the building. It's what we handed out to all the employees, so the core values and a short description of each one of them on the back.
Yeah, what's really nice with the core values is all the employees have definitely bought into it, but I don't want to say like they bought into it because it's kind of like unearthing like who we are, but we're always referring back to it, and when we have our weekly meetings, we're always saying, okay, what types of core values did anybody notice this week? And everybody's always raising their hand and giving examples of the different types of core values, and I think that those are the types of things that we want to continue to push down through the organization. Because it means a lot, right? We're not just here punching a clock and collecting a paycheck. We want to have a purpose and a deep purpose.
Other questions?
Yes, you mentioned earlier, Steve, that the pros and cons is you're working with the family. Have you had any, have you fought, in the workplace or conflicts in the
They're not here.
workplace?
Yeah. They are no longer employed.
I mean, the big thing with this is you're going to have a way to resolve conflict. And the biggest thing is you need to have that process, and you need to be willing to talk. And at the end of the day, there may be some decisions that are unpopular with some. And at the end of the day, someone's going to make a decision, and you're going to be able to support that. And what happens, behind closed doors is probably more appropriate than what happens out in the vicinity of the office for everybody to hear. So it certainly gets more challenging as time goes on. You have multiple generations. It's different when you have brothers and sisters, but when you go from brothers and sisters to nephews and nieces and cousins and aunts and uncles, it's a different dynamic. So certainly we've had our learning experience growing up in the business, and have seen all sorts of stuff, and I've read a whole book on that. But at the end of the day, it really makes you stronger because you work through those things and you're all focused on what's best for the company to move forward.
Yeah, and the one other thing that I would just like to add, because I don't want to get completely taken out of context here.
There's no reporters, we're good. Oh, it is being taped though.
We do have a lot of healthy conflict with the family, not necessarily bad conflict, right? So every once in a while, you kind of get into it a little bit, but for the most part, it's all great conversations, challenging one another, and ultimately we're making the company better when you do that.
Sure. Other questions? Yes, Lori.
How many family members work with you?
There's 11 full-time that are in the business.
Yes.
Where do you see the next 10 years? You've done so much over the past 20. Where do you see the next 10 years look like?
I would say another geographic footprint somewhere in the country from a manufacturing perspective.
Yeah, our goal is in the next 5 years to hit £1 billion. So we're at about 450 million pounds or so right now. So we got quite a ways to go, and we're not going to get there just out of the one facility.
And why do you measure in pounds on a liquid?
Because the cost of our commodity goes up and down. So our revenue will double in one fiscal year, but our volume sales is only about, say, 5%. And it's not going to do it right. So that's just a great measurement for us.
Did everybody get that?
it's very important when I talk to my bankers about that.
So conversely, and this is what happened back in 2008, our sales went down, revenue went down by, I don't know, 15, say 20%, but our volume was up 5 or 8%. So that's one thing that we experienced back then, that's suddenly something upset.
You know, just putting that in perspective, in 2021, you know, you start the year, or late 20s, you start the year with 35-cent oil. We finished the year last year at 75, 80-cent oil. So you know, that's nothing that we did. We didn't add any value to that situation. It's just what the input costs were for us, which translated into our selling price. So it's a significant change. So when folks talk about, you know, what's your top line revenue, it's always been a discussion of what's the volume behind that revenue that's important for us. So
Yeah, when you look at last week, we took out all-time highs 3 different times. Right? So it's not fun when you're talking to customers, but the good news is everybody trades off the same market, right?
Any other questions? Yes, Joanne?
How do we know we're buying your oil at, say, Market Basket?
Great question. So our brands are Marconi and La Spagnola, and those are found at Market Basket, and pretty much only Market Basket. Outside of that, if you're at Market Basket, you're buying the Market Basket brand, or the 365 brand at Whole Foods, or the Trader brand, or pretty much any store brand locally. It's been through our facility. 90% confidence, I would say.
Other questions? Well, I want to thank Joe, Steve, and Mike for your candid conversation and letting us see what's going on over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.